This is Essentials video week 7. Okay, so start out algebraically speaking. Rita has $5 in her purse. This is $12 less than she had before she went shopping. So we can create a variable x, which should be her initial cost, or not initial cost, but what she started with. And so it says that she has $5 in her purse now, and that's $12 less than what she had, which is x, so minus 12 is equal to 5. That's our problem, so you just add 12 to the other side, and you get 17. So the answer is $17. So it's just writing a algebraic equation to solve a problem. Quite simple. Investigate data. It's asking the same thing as it usually does, comparing the mean and the mode. The mean is just the average, so you take the average of, well, first thing I would suggest doing is put these numbers in order. So put 46, 59, 60. We're doing this just because it also asks us for the median, and it'll just make everything easier, because you know, to find the median, you basically cross out the ends until you get to the middle number. So our mean, all you have to do is add all of these numbers up and divide by how many numbers there are. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So divide by 10, and you should get, let's see, you should get the mean as 60... That is not right. Well, it says 65.6, but it's supposed to be 65.3. 65.3 is the right answer for the mean. Now the median, cross out the ends, bam, 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 bam. And you can't cross these numbers out. There are two left in the middle, and when you come to that kind of problem, you take the average of those two numbers. So 65 plus 70 divided by 2 will give you 67.5. Yeah, that's correct. So that is that problem. All it asks you is for the mean and the mode, and self-explanatory. Okay, so next is geometry rules. Oh yeah, I looked at this problem and I can't quite figure out what this box is supposed to look like. It says that there's this box that he's going to put it in. I don't know if you could ask your teacher about this, but he says there's 120 square inches on the top, 96, he said in front. The front of the box has an area of 96, which I just drew the front of the box. And it says the end, which is very vague, has 80 square inches. And it wants you to find the dimensions. Now, essentially the dimensions would be the height by the, length times width times height. That would be your dimensions. But in this case, this is totally not logical. Think about it. A surface area of 96 on your front end and 80 on your back end, your top is going to look like this. It's going to look like a trapezoid. And you can't have dimensions for a trapezoid, because to have dimensions it has to be a perfect rectangular prism in which, I did not draw that to scale, but all right angles are present, everything has a right angle, and this one doesn't. This question was pretty badly worded, so please ask your teacher about that one. I'm going to tell you the answers that came from the thing. It says it's 12 by 10 by 8, but I have no clue how they got that answer. So ask your teacher about that. I even asked some people here and they were confused. So, okay, moving on to Mathmania. Okay, you have this coordinate plane, x and y axis, and you're given certain dots. You're given -2, 1, you're given -1, 3, and you're given 1, 1. And it's asking you, what would the coordinate of point C, what could the coordinate of point C be? They should have worded that better too. So basically we're looking for the domain. I don't know if you learned domain yet, but domain is basically all of the x values that can be the answer. It's kind of hard to explain because you haven't gotten into functions yet, but in this case the domain is going to be everything that can make a trapezoid. It's every x value. So you're going to have an x and y value when you put a new point on there, and the domain is going to have to, let's see, that point's going to have to be in the domain, which the domain contains all points that will make a trapezoid. So we're trying to make trapezoids here. And the trapezoids that can be made, well, let's see, you're doing here, right? Definition of a trapezoid is one pair of parallel lines. So as long as this line is parallel to this line, we're good. So this point can actually get infinitely close to this point right here. If we put a point, maybe 0.0001 units to the right of this, it would still be a trapezoid. So we know part of our domain is going to be x is greater than -1. And I put greater than and not greater than or equal to because it cannot be equal to this point right here. Why? Because that's just going to make a triangle, right? It has to be some distance from here, and we'll be fine. Now, we're actually not done. If you think you move this point outward enough, then what kind of shape has taken place here? Look, it's parallelogram. And we don't want a parallelogram. We want a trapezoid. Parallelogram is two sets of parallel lines. So this point out here is something we don't want to include in the domain. In other words, the domain is everything that will make a trapezoid in this situation. So we have to exclude this point, and it looks like on the graph that point is going to be 2, 3. 2, 3. So this means that the x value can never be 2. It can't ever be 2. It can be 2.5, it can be 1.5, anything other than 2, but also greater than -1. So we're essentially building up our domain. Now let's think about, well, this point has to land on this line, essentially. It's following a parallel line, because if it moves down any units, then these lines aren't going to be parallel, right? And so we also have to include this in our domain. And how do we represent this line right here? How do you write the equation of that line right there? Well, if you think of this equation, you know you're not going to have any slope. So there is no y is equal to x or anything, which would have a 1 slope, which is just 0, 0, 1, 1, 2, 2. That's a slope of 1. In this case, we don't need a slope. This is a 0 slope. So we know that the equation has to be y is equal to something. And we look at the y-intercept, and it lands across the y-intercept 3. So this is actually a function equation. So think about it. For every x value, y is equal to 3. And this would represent this line, because if you say